Welcome back to the energy tips for week 12. That is the 16th till 22nd of March. I hope you all watched the energy update already. This is the in-depth view going through all the different layers of your energy body and how this week, this collective energy that's coming in with next week, affecting your system and what you can do. All right, so there's a little bit of a collapse energy that is coming in with this next week. It brings in an identity crisis, not just for ourselves, but for, all the systems that we are in, like the nations, the countries, Brexit, borders, power systems and so forth. This has been going on for a while, so that's nothing new, but there is this really strong sort of, it's about time. This is like the new year. This is the new energy that is coming in right now. And people, systems, everybody is holding on to the old ways. And they've already shown us that they don't work. So it's really this integration time right now. And I want to call this week a little bit like the silence before the storm. Okay, this is a week for laying low. This is a week for really going within, for consciously integrating some of the things that you have been working with all last year, because really the energy to manifest all this and to bring this into action doesn't come until the very last week of March into the beginning of April. So the equinox is this turning point, is this pivotal point between letting go of the old and embracing the new. Okay, so you're going to have to deal a little bit with some of the past stuff that you don't really like about yourself, but at the same time allow yourself to really move into this new place. And so it's all about allowing here. Okay, everything that you have planned out. Remember how I said you need to have a strategy for 2019, but don't mistake that as a plan. So planning and strategizing are two different things. A strategy is more like your alignment, your overall goal, and the steps that you need to get there. The plan then is the detailed A to Z. First I do this, then I do this, and so forth. This can sometimes make us too rigid and make us or give us this false sense of security. And therefore, when things happen, be it internal or external things that happen, they can make our plan, go bye-bye. And this is then where we often have a little bit of a crisis. So it's a healing crisis. And if you did make plans and they didn't work through, or your old ways are not working anymore, it's no reason to panic. Okay, so I said don't take this too personally. This is the time where everything wants to be turned and looked at once more, but without this inner confliction of going back and forth. So those of us here who have been trying to sort of intellectualize, conceptualize all this, we can get stuck in a almost like a neurotic place. And I just want to give you guys a heads up that if you're feeling you're going nuts, all right, this is real. All right, it's not true, but it's real, okay, because you can't really resolve these aspects of false self and true self with your mind. The only way to resolve this is from within your heart, and the only way to do that comes through really being present in your heart. So the focus needs to be on how to be present and how to allow the future to pull you into the future, as opposed to seeing your future as a result or consequence of your past. Of course, these two things, these two dualisms always work hand in hand. But when it comes to actually understanding nature, understanding divine power, it's really more that we're being pulled into our future. We're being pulled in fulfilling the promise of our higher potential. We're being pulled into our karmic task. It isn't so much that we are driven forward. So reviewing, looking back is okay, but only to gain this witnesser perspective that allows us to look at the past or to look at our present, but without attaching to it, and to say, okay, I guess I had to experience all this to arrive here. And this doesn't always go without resistance. So whether it's in terms of your own career, in terms of your relationship, in terms of some bigger life decisions, you're going to feel a little bit of this panic right now. And I want to reassure you that this isn't really as dramatic or as intense as it feels right now. This whole week will feel intense, but if you can manage to look past this and really trust in your instincts, as I called this last week, trust in your inner prompting, it can carry you through there. Instead, really just witness what is coming forward, what are your inner conflicts, write them down. Journaling will be a wonderful tool here for this next week. And all resistances, all sort of inner conflictions, this super ego, bad, mean parent, inner critical voice that says, whoa, but what if, and blah, blah, blah. Write all this down. Write it all down. And on the equinox itself, next Thursday, go and burn them all. Take all these things, these objections and these impedences, burn them all and say, okay, I've acknowledged you, I've recorded you, and now I'm letting you go, and now I'm opening myself up for who I truly am. So don't get caught in this questioning. Just acknowledge that you have conflictions, but don't get attached to them. All right. Another thing that is coming in here next week is this karmic pull into things such as guilt and shame. You'll feel a little bit of that, where you look back and you feel maybe that you have harmed other people, or that you were harmed, and there is this victim perpetrator thing that is coming forward here in regards to your karmic setup, your karmic family, and so forth. Guys, the only way to really get through this is to really work with this. This is why we have inner child, shadow work, narcissist, empath workshop. We have this weekend here. This next week is like packed with going deeper within, really looking at your trauma, and trying to understand it better, understand what it did to you, and how you can neutralize this, how you can transform and transcend out of this. All right, so don't be afraid of losing control. Instead, seek this empowerment through understanding it from the perspective of your inner truth. All right, so who am I? All right, you're not your past, and you're not even your present, or at least sort of the manifestations of what you are presently seeing. You are this being in you, okay, that has been prompting you all along. So all the conflictions that you have are merely the manifestations of where you weren't congruent, where you weren't truly or fully trusting in this inner prompting. And so for this new paradigm, for this new sort of level of awakening and conscious living, you need to be willing to really look at your inner prompting and trust in it. Okay? So get ready, but don't shoot yet. All right? Because there's a lot of friction and impulsivity that is coming forward. It's really better to just go into the softer place with yourself. Chakras involved, 2nd and 4th. This is literally, all your pleasure, all your desire, all your wants and needs and needinesses and all that comes with this. But it wants to move into your heart. It wants to be true, and you want to shed all the things that are actually not really moving you forward. Whether it be sexual energies, whether it be greed, whether it be the need to be in control, or the need to overpower others, or whatever it is that you discover sort of as your shadow trait, okay? Those things are all integral part of you. You don't need to be afraid of them. When you learn to work with them, you can learn to discover some hidden talents underneath it, okay? But 2nd and 4th, that's what this energy of this next week triggers in you. Now, at the same time, we still have a really strong influx of psychic energies, okay? And this is for you empaths, very important to understand. Your third eye is wide open, and many of you have not done enough training yet. We did this here last weekend with the chakra workshop, to keep your crown chakra aligned so that it's not too open, so that you don't get pulled into all the astral, the dark energies that are around the human collective. It's the collective shadow, if you will. And so you can be susceptible to this really intense sort of astral experience where you have these nightmares, where you get pinned down, or where you have panic attacks because you're seeing energies everywhere. This is still there, but it will be a little more grounded in the first chakra. So the first chakra is coming in, wanting you to stand with both your feet in reality while seeing the deeper aspects at the same time. So don't be afraid of this, all right? Ground yourself as much as you can. Calm your nervous system. Really work with your ability to be in the now. And when you have these like weirdo visions and stuff coming in, then talk to people like myself. This is what we're here for, guys, to help you contextualize this, what this means. Or talk to other people who are not judging you, or who are not going into panic, or into sort of like alien or OBE stuff or whatever. These are all normal parts of your perceptivity, and they need to be learned how to deal with them as an empath. And then the last chakra aspect here is the barrier between the third and the fourth, the false self and the true self aspect. This is something that we have been dealing with on and off. This will continue. It's this part in us that is linked to what we want, that wants to move into how we want it. So you guys, most of you are currently working on this, and so this time here in this next week will feel a bit conflicted there. That's what I meant with the confusion between wants and needs, and perhaps feeling guilty for some of the neediness that you've noticed in yourself, or some of, the desires, the pleasures that you're seeking, where you feel like your ego is kind of like getting the best of you. So don't go into this conflict too much. Instead, really just keep focusing on this question: is this really me? And if it is not, how do I truly feel about this, and how do I truly want this? Again, overall for next week, don't make any big decisions. Go more into this reflective, observing type of mode with yourself and with others. Okay. Physically, many of you have had issues with the flu, issues with throat, sinus, headaches, migraines. It's a bit seasonal, but it's also part of this sixth chakra overlay that we have. Just understand that when you have issues with balancing 6th and 7th chakra, meaning your higher perception and the stuff that's coming in from the outside, and your own inner seeking, okay, when that collides and when that mesmerizes you into fantasy or alternative realities, if you will, and you start questioning, is this real? The best way to go about this is to really sort of stop. Don't feed it. Don't resist it either. And just really go focus on your breathing. Go into your heart and let yourself feel it out. Okay? So it's this allowing part. And the hard part here for this next week is that, especially those of us who have chronic issues with lungs and with skin conditions, also people who are very allergic, they will feel a flare-up. So stuff is going to come in, lung issues as sort of the last remainders of this flu season, but also returning eczema or hives, weird stuff with your skin and your hair, lower back issues, maybe a little bit of kidney issues. So don't worry too much about this, guys. Just Really focus on calming your nervous system. Don't overreact. Ground yourself as much as you can. Nature is going to be your best friend. This is something that shows you the cycle of things. And if you want to be really good, you can go with it. Go dance. Go slower motions. Maybe drumming as well is always very grounding. And use the equinox energies to develop your own self-healing ritual, like burning those pain cards or resentment cards, or doing a fire in your backyard, inviting some friends over. It doesn't matter. It's like really about you being present and you being okay with being. This then empowers your energy system, to get through any kind of physical reaction that comes forward. Emotionally, it's a bit stressful here because you can still feel panicky and this fear of losing control. So my tip for you is to actually go deep into this differentiation between needs and wants. And when you look into the past, to not judge yourself for these things that came forward as a result of not being able to differentiate those. So many of you feel guilty about their desires, their pleasures. Guys, some of those aren't actually desires, they're needs, so please work with this hierarchy of human needs and look at, where you are identifying that you have needs that you actually see as pleasures, and then reframe that for yourself, okay, to say, I have the need to lay down, or I have the need for sex, or I have the need for food. It's not the same as indulging, or binge eating, or excessively, or being fixated on things. So there is a balance there, okay? Allow yourself your needs, and especially, as I've already mentioned in the energy update, communicate your needs, okay? It's okay to ask your partner, to give you a foot massage, or to help you with dealing with things. If they say no, that's fine, but it's really important that you feel like you have the right to need things. You have the right to express your needs, all right? So allow that process, calm down. Don't shun yourself or judge yourself too much for maybe where you've identified that you've been too selfish in the past. At the same time, don't judge yourself if you find out that you've been too codependent in the past. When it's with your kids, for instance, it's totally okay to talk about it with your kids and to say, look, guys, I know I've been doing this for you all these years, but I now realize that that's not good for you. So I want us to work this out together. I want us to have a bit more balance here between giving and receiving. All right, so don't be afraid of things that used to work in the past no longer really being acceptable for you, because this is all part of your growing consciousness, okay? Now, mentally, those of you who have been contextualizing their journey primarily in an intellectual way, you may run into a little bit of an issue here. I've mentioned this already. You can literally feel like you're going nuts because you're trying to go through the hundreds iteration of what could happen or what happens if, or pros and cons. This is all just part of your inner dualism, your ego coping, and you gotta recognize it for what it is. So don't try to come up with fixes. This fixation on fixes is what creates the dualism in the first place. If you see it all as a process, and you see that you basically develop the skill set and the tools that you need to get through the next layer of this shedding of your false self and emerging of your true self, then you don't really need to go into this force, into this white-knuckledness. All right, so just, stand up here to that inner critical voice, that overparent, the bad parent, the super ego or whatever that's constantly feeding you with this negativity and this judgment, and just say, okay, I hear you, but, right now, this week, I'm not listening to you. Or, who says so, or compared to whom, or, those are all things, you know, that we recommend as in critical inner voice integration. In general, this is not a good week to make bigger decisions, contracts at work, rental contracts, you know, things that you are deciding right now in this sort of conflicted state that you're at. Those things may not be true to you anymore in a couple of weeks. So I would definitely recommend you just agree with yourself that you're not going to really make any big moves this week. Wait till next week, the end of next week. There'll be a lot more clarity, and you'll also feel a lot more courage, you know, to make good decisions for yourself. Socially, with your relationships, at work, it is a time of impulsivity, so you're going to run into resistance, and especially when you're starting to change things. So let's say, and I remember this vividly when I was there, when I became aware of all these codependencies that I had, or these behaviors that I had, where I would constantly just sort of focus on the needs of others and constantly sort of almost like pushing their needs onto them and excessively trying to meet them for them, all right, especially with my kids. And I started to change that. They did not like that. They thought I was mad at them, or I was punishing them for something, or I didn't love them anymore. And it took a little bit of getting used to. So, you know, understand that this whole transformation into your true self is a step into more freedom, a step into more choices, and with it, of course, also more self-responsibility. So my suggestion to you is, while you're in this sort of change your behavior or correcting your behavior or trying new things phase, you know, watch others, just observe, see how they're doing. It can help to play things back into their field and say, look, you know, I found out that this really isn't good for me. So me deciding for myself isn't the same as against you, okay? And we just have to find different ways. The way this is working isn't working for me, so I want new ways, and I'm going to do the first step here. And, you know, how are you going to deal with this? Don't let yourself get pulled into these old relationship patterns, okay? Just watch what happens. Now, spiritually, this is a bigger conflict here, because when it comes to guilt and shame, it's very often linked to, you know, I mean, I call this mindset, but it really goes deep into our spiritual preoccupation. What makes a person a good person, you know, or what's a bad person? And we run into this place with ourselves that has led to us becoming fake or presenting this false self. So wanting to be a good person, I mean, most people really want to be good persons. And then the methods, or the method of operation that we pick can nullify that. Sometimes it can be non-integrous, and pretending to be nice, you know, can be just as dark as, you know, appearing selfish. So you're going to have to find where you standing with this, okay? Understand that from a spiritual perspective, self-sacrifice is not honorable. It's not integrous. It's not congruent. So nature doesn't want you to self-sacrifice yourself. You know, it wants you to thrive. It wants you to grow into your highest potential. And so sometimes, while decisions or choices feel like they are selfish, you're actually working towards this expression of your divine nature more than by victimizing yourself or letting other people take an advantage of you, okay? Also understand that some of these beliefs that you have, that you are often unaware of, you know, they're really outdated for you. You know, especially in terms of role understanding, you know, female, male energies, and sexuality for that matter, which is why we have the workshop here next week. So spirituality and sexuality are linked together, and they have a very important connection, just not what you think. There's nothing There's nothing tacky about that, because sexual energy is a very raw form of our life force energy, and it's linked to our second most natural needs as a human being. And finding the balance with our sexuality, with our physicality, with our wantingness to connect with other people and intimacy is a huge part of our liberation journey and of our transformation journey into a true self. So self-empowerment here comes through actually allowing your inner truth and really being on that level of seeing your true intention from within, okay? And then you can deal with the aftermath, like sort of where you've overpowered other people, or where you've manipulated people, or where you've, sort of violated your own boundaries, where you let them be overstepped, or where you violated other people's boundaries later. That is reconciliation work. This week is more like allowing all this to come forward. And last but not least, the energetic level of your energy body here. I strongly recommend you to consider shadow work. So here at transCODES, we'll do shadow work. We'll do codependency healing this weekend. We'll do the understanding sexual energies, understanding sexual trauma, and then all the way to learning the mechanisms between empaths and narcissists, and why this sort of archetypal or stereotypal abuse problem between people, what is involved in this, and what you can do, to work with this and to heal from this. So trust in your inner prompting, guys. Remember, your future is pulling you in, and it's not that your past is pushing you forward, it's your future, due to your alignment to the divine and your true self, that is now starting to prompt you to guide into the right direction. You don't need to question it. You don't need to be afraid of making wrong choices, because this is coming from your heart. So all you really got to learn is how to trust in your heart. Okay? Thank you for your support. Thank you for being such wonderful supporters for transCODES. And I hope to see you in Iceland soon. We are getting excited. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.